not actually my fault that I'm this big. About 10 years ago, I was kidnapped in Nigeria and held for 2 weeks by 9 hoodlums in the middle of the Atlantic creeks. By the time I was released, I was a nervous wreck. Welcome to Donu'S Week, which is about what I've been up to for the past 7 days, the people I've interacted with, the places I've been to, the things I've done and not done, and the thoughts I've had. Hi peeps, thank God it's Friday, the end of a particularly stressful week. Now, last Friday, I told you that my doctor here in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, threw a huge bombshell at me. But I didn't tell you what it was. And I want to tell you now that I've spent the past few days really struggling to come to terms with the fact that I now have type 2 diabetes. And because one of the ways in which I've decided to cope with this devastating diagnosis is to start a new section in my Donu'S Week video called Staying Alive, Diabetes Watch, so that I can share my journey with you. Because, you know, type 2 diabetes, well, any type of diabetes is a big deal. Let me tell you how serious it is, for those of you who are not familiar with it. According to a British charity that specializes in caring for people with this condition, every week diabetes leads to 184 amputations, more than 980 strokes, 680 heart attacks, and 3,230 cases of heart failure. That's 1 week in the UK alone. Now, I mean, that's a really big deal. And if you're told you have this terrible condition, you really need to sit up and figure out how to deal with it. Now, most people who have diabetes develop it because of factors like age, ethnicity, lifestyle, family history. I am one of the many who has developed diabetes because I am chronically overweight. There are about 12 million diabetics in the UK, 34 million in the United States, and several here in Nigeria. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get reliable statistics. And when you get that kind of bad news that you suddenly have joined this club, well, it's actually not suddenly, because it's a cumulative thing when it comes to people like me. It's to do with years of neglect. We'll talk about that later. When you hear that you have this terrible condition, you need to sit up and figure out how to stay alive, because apart from all those things I just mentioned, like amputation and heart attacks, there's also the fact that some diabetics simply die. It is a potentially fatal, deadly disease. And in the coming weeks and months, I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to do to make sure that I avoid death and avoid one of the, debilitating or paralyzing conditions that can be triggered by type 2 diabetes. And I'm really looking forward to those of you who are in the same boat, reaching out to me, telling me about your experiences, or maybe it's not you, maybe it's your parent or your child or your sibling or friend who has it. Either way, with numbers like 34 million, 12 million, and probably even more in Nigeria, we're looking at something that affects a large percentage of the world's population. Same thing, I'm sure, in Europe, Australia and other places. And so let's, it'd be really nice to go through this not alone. If you've got any advice to offer, I'd love to hear it. And by the way, even though millions and zillions of white people all over the world get diabetes or are born with it, Black people and Asians and Chinese are more likely to suffer from it than any other ethnicities. And I'm sorry if I'm being a bit slow, but I'm still in a state of shock. So I'm still trying to form in my mind, thoughts and about how to get out of this. But the good news is that my doctor here, Dr. Adetola, has told me that it is reversible. I don't think it's curable, but you can turn it around. I don't really know the details yet because I haven't yet had the courage to sit down and read all the stuff online or buy any books about it. The furthest I've gone so far is ordering a Harvard Medical School report on living with diabetes, and I haven't even read that. So I'm at a very early stage of the journey. I suppose I'm still in a bit of denial because I even said to my sister this morning, I don't really think I have diabetes because there are no symptoms. I've not felt terribly well for many years because I'm overweight and I'm breathless and I suffer from joint pain. But I said to her, other than that, there are no symptoms. People tell me that diabetes is one of those things where symptoms may not be obvious till it's too late. So I really need to get my act together, get my head together, and figure out how I personally am going to tackle this nightmare. One thing, I've actually started sorting out the weight issue. Though some of you have been watching my videos for the past year will know that I've been talking about weight loss for well over a year. And even before I started on YouTube, I was talking about weight loss in my newspaper columns. I'm a journalist, so I write about my life all the time. So, this weight loss challenge is not a new thing for me. But I think now that I've been told that I actually have a condition that will get worse and could become fatal if I don't get rid of the obesity, I actually think, you're going to see a lot more seriousness from me around shedding weight. And I started fasting on Tuesday, and I will do a certain amount of fasting every week until my weight comes down and my blood sugar comes down. And I'm going to ramp up the exercise, which is another important lifestyle factor that helps with type 2 diabetes. And most important of all, I'm going to ditch my sugar addiction. I am so addicted to sugar. But funnily enough, since Tuesday, I haven't missed it at all. I have fasted before, but deep down and subconsciously, I was never as serious about fasting or dieting in the past as I am now because I have so much to lose. I've got a young son who needs to have his mother around for as long as possible. Okay, so I'm trying to sound a bit cheerful and look a bit optimistic, but I'm actually very, very sad. And in this week's Food for Thought section, I'm going to tell you what makes me saddest. Now, it's not actually my fault that I'm this big. About 10 years ago, I was kidnapped in Nigeria and held for 2 weeks by 9 hoodlums in the middle of the Atlantic creeks. By the time I was released, I was a nervous wreck. I had to be put on medication to calm my nerves because I was seeing all kinds of awful hallucinations. I was on the verge of a breakdown. Now, the problem is that though the medication definitely calmed me down, it also caused me to gain 2 kilos a week, roughly, for the 3 years I was on the medication. Now, I had always been slim before that. So I wasn't used to being fat, but I didn't try to lose weight really while I was on the medication because I could see that there was something happening to my body that was out of my control, and there was no point trying to lose weight that was clearly being caused by an external factor like medication. But I promised myself that when I came off the medication, I would go on a diet if the weight did not automatically fall off once I stopped taking the meds. Well, the weight did not fall off, and unfortunately, I did not go on a diet that was effective or sustained. I'm a complete food junkie, always have been. But I used to be one of those lucky people who could eat a whole cheesecake every day and loads of sugar and lots of different dishes. Some days I had like 2 lunches and a couple of dinners. And I never put on any weight, not any significant amount of weight, not even in middle age. So I wasn't well equipped psychologically to suddenly be this fat person who had to watch their weight and had to think about ways of losing weight. Long story short, I just continued to eat like a pig, and that's where we are today. In fact, my metabolism was permanently changed by that medication, and I've actually gained more weight since I came off the medication. And the reason I'm sad is because I've put myself in a situation that I could have controlled. Let me just read you something from one of the diabetes experts. It says, factors such as income, education, housing, access to healthy food have been shown to be strongly linked to an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes and, of course, obesity. Now, why am I angry or sad? Why am I sad and angry? Because I come from a very privileged background. I've never had major problems around housing. I mean, right now I live in one of the best parts of Nigeria and have lived here for a long time. When I'm in Nigeria, because I'm actually, I do shuttle between Nigeria and the UK. And by the way, my English doctor, who is actually my main doctor, did warn me last year that I was looking pre-diabetic. Of course, I didn't take him seriously. What does pre-diabetic mean? And in any case, I always intended to lose some weight and make the effort, and I never did. So, long story short, here I am suffering from something that people on low income, which though I've had my financial problems on and off over the years, I've never been a poor person. Education, people who are educationally challenged and don't know much about health, also tend to get obese and diabetes. Well, education is certainly not my problem. Access to healthy food, I have an abundance of healthy food sources and opportunities. So basically, I have behaved like some poor woman who doesn't know much, who hasn't had any opportunities, who doesn't live in good circumstances, and who therefore is probably very, depressed or incapable of managing her health properly. I'm just like one of them. I'm just like one of those, huge women in some village in Alabama or Nigeria who don't know, they don't know how to take care of themselves. I know how to take care of myself. I've basically got no excuse. Okay. So, I just urge all of you to don't do what I did. Because if you're listening to this video, you're already an educated person. You don't have to have a PhD or a college degree. But, you can read and you can write and you can understand quality English. And so, if you haven't got type 2 diabetes, do not get it. Don't copy me, I'm an idiot, okay? And if you do already have it, and you're neglecting yourself and not taking the need to sort it out seriously, you really need to get your act together. In addition to lifestyle changes like increased exercise and reduced gluttony, which I'm going to embrace seriously, so just so my son can have a mom for as long as possible, I'm also going to start Monjaro seriously. It's one of those weight loss injections that we read so much about nowadays, just like Ozempic and Wegovy. And I hear it's very good for diabetics. So I'm going to use that as a crutch. I mean, I'd rather do it on my own without any extra meds. But you know, I'm 65 years old. Time is running out. I'm going to use whatever crutches I can use to get out of this mess. And as I said, I will keep you posted, and there will be a diabetes type thing every week on Donu'S Week. Thank you very much.